Gotta stroke the beard for a little bit for all you guys right there. But hello, welcome to DCU Daily. Well, we got some major news today. As everyone, can't shut the hell up about it because it's a big one today about your boy Lobo getting a huge, and I mean huge development, I guess, not on a major film, but it's definitely on his own movie, I should say, but definitely a major film that's coming up in the near future. So we have a lot to talk about with that. We still have a couple underlings about the, Batman Part 2 delay. So we have a couple more things about that as well as some other Superman things. But the main thing to talk about today is Lobo, because obviously if you've been living under a fucking rock and haven't heard about this, well, Jason Momoa, the man, the myth, the legend, has been announced as Lobo himself, guys. Look at this. Look at this. We all were hoping, we were all wanting, and today it has actually happened. So I would just we're going to just talk about this. This is going to be the main story today, guys. This is official. I got to say hello to some others in the chat today. Antonio, Caleb, Hosea, Hunter, Miraculous. Hello, everybody in the chat today. And Buster Barnes, rubbing it in our faces. I always knew this would happen. Well, I was a little bit apprehensive because Jason Momoa was born to play this role. It's so clearly obvious. He was like the look, him being a fan, just everything screamed this character. That's that's what everyone hoped for. So we're all apprehensive, like, okay, yes, James Gunn in the past has given us, good fan castings, as like David Cornswell was fan casted as Superman for a good long while. So, we would all secretly hope that, he would give us Jason Momoa as Lobo. Because as much as I liked his Aquaman, his Lobo would be amazing. And I think it will be in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Now, he was the one who let the news out on his Instagram first and foremost. Pride of Gypsies. He let it slip that he put up his famous quote where he was talking about Lobo. He's like, I always loved Lobo. I thought I was perfect for the role. I collected those books. I was a huge fan, and I'm sitting here. If they want to call, they'll call. And if they don't, they don't. And then all he said was they called. And it was pretty much confirmed. James Gunn would go on to confirm our boy Jason Momoa as Lobo. This was the, I
So
collect yes. Hi, Dan.
I was just gonna say, so indeed, when he walked out of Warner Brothers all those years ago, he wasn't just happy about being the host of Shark Week.
I guess so.
He wanted.
I guess so.
Yeah, all right, well,
But I
okay.
mean, to be fair, he did say they called. He didn't say they.
I mean, I think it's
He
more
didn't
of a
say I.
figurative thing. Like, it's not
I
like
guess
James
so.
Gunn literally, you know what I mean? It's like they called as in, I mean, he's trying to be clever, obviously. I don't know.
Right.
I'm just like,
So
this has to be something that was like in the works for a while, right? Like, you don't just, the movie's supposedly going to start filming on January 13th, which you're going to get into later, but like, you can't, I can't imagine they're now. This has to be something like Ben Affleck when he got cast for the role of Batman. When it became official, like he gave an interview saying, "Oh yeah, I signed on the dotted line 6 months ago." So I can't imagine that this is something that's brand new. Anyway, but it's new to us. It's new to the world. So Lobo, I want to see his pet dog, DAWG. I can't wait for that.
Caleb Underwood, nice audio,
My
Dan.
dog.
We can tell you love Man of Steel. I guess that's
What?
Man of Steel has. I
How
guess
am I
Man of
getting?
Steel
How
has.
am I catching strays? How am I catching strays for this? Like what? You know what? Man of
I
Steel
guess
is
he's
one of the
saying Man of
greatest
Steel has
superhero
bad
movies of
sound
all
design or
time.
something. I don't know, but
Oh, I'm sorry. Look, I am mobile, as Bane would say. So that's why
Yeah, and now we can't hear you.
I had to make this sacrifice.
So
You don't
Caleb
get to see
Caleb
my
is
beard.
clarifying his terrible joke. Man of Steel
So,
is shit like your audio, Dan.
you know what? Okay, fine. I mean, my audio is shit, but don't. Like, why is Man of Steel gonna catch a stray for that? Like, it's okay, man.
uh
Zack
anyway.
Snyder released a sequel. He added a Batman and a Wonder Woman 3 years later. The movie came.
He's going on a Batman Part 2 rant, guys. We're gonna get into that soon, but Dan, you're
However,
going in and out. We
it's
can barely hear
anyway.
you.
All right, I'm out. Like, you guys have fun.
Damn, Caleb, you made poor Dan rage quit. Caleb, Man of Steel always catches straight for me. It's my job. But also, Antonio, thank you. Hit the like button. J. Kelly, hi. Dog versus crypto. So yeah, this is the biggest thing that we've gotten today. That's our big breaking news today. Now we have 2 Game of Thrones stars for the price of 1. Because as we all know, Millie Alcock is our Supergirl, as well as others include Matthias Schoenaerts as Creme of the Yellow Hill, as well as Eve Ridley is going to play Ruthie Mary Knoll. So, it's definitely going to be interesting. I'm like, I remember a lot of people saying way back when, where they were like, "Oh, is Lobo going to be a part of it? Is Lobo going to be in it?" Because I remember people saying who have read it. I have not read it yet. I'm gonna eventually. Um, how there was a bounty hunter in that story, in the Woman of Tomorrow's story, and they could just replace his character with Lobo. So that's what it seems like they might do. He's probably not going to have a very big role, but I guess with the whole I can bet you this, and feel free, guys, if I'm, just blowing hot air. I can bet you with all this Batman Part 2 shit going on, they're like, "Oh, guys, we got to get some goodwill back towards DC with like getting it fucking delayed to 2027 again. Guys, why don't we Jason, why don't you just reveal that you've gotten the role of Lobo?" And he's like, "All right, cool." So I bet you that this is the whole Shark Week thing, whenever that happened, like months ago. And he can now finally reveal that. I can bet you that the Supergirl specific thing wasn't revealed, just that he would be Lobo in a movie, whatever that movie that is. They're like, you're gonna be Lobo, and he's like, cool, great, and he was all giddy as we saw that video way back when. But yes, this is our cast for, as I said, Alcock, Schoenaerts, Ridley, and Momoa is our cast. Gillespie is our director, and Ana Guerra is our writer. So get pumped for Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which, by the way, will start shooting in exactly, I believe it's exactly 2 weeks from now. So that's very fucking exciting. I know people have been kind of on the fence with Supergirl because, a lot of people liked Sasha Cali, even though she was stuck in a shitty movie, and didn't want, Millie Alcock, who barely has any. I mean, to be fair, Sasha Cali didn't have any major roles under her belt either, but a lot of people like Sasha Cali despite Flash being terrible. So like, we wish we could have gotten her a second chance, but she gave her blessing. Millie Alcock, I have heard, was one of the best parts of those early episodes of House of the Dragon. So this is very terribly exciting, and it's kind of that next step. I know a lot of people are really upset by the Batman Part 2 news. I'm not gonna lie, um, okay, even Miraculous was saying he's going to play the bounty hunter role Tom King had originally wanted to write as Lobo in the comic. So, yeah. Um, Hey, Elite Easy, main man. The Woman of Tomorrow cast is strong. I wish Lenny were here because she's always scrambling for Supergirl news, and we have the biggest Supergirl news we could have possibly asked for. So, this is very exciting. So January 13th is when we will be getting our Supergirl filming started. And if I were to guess based on the Superman filming, and this is going to be even more cosmic, so there's probably even more green screen and all that shit. So if I were to guess, Superman went from February 29th to the last week in July. So that was about March, April, May, June, most of July. So that was about 5 months. I'm willing to bet that this is probably going to be 6 to 7 months. So probably till June or July is when this is going to be filming. And then February 12th, I believe it was February. It was in the middle of February. Somebody somebody give me the correct information in regards to that. Allegedly, according to Production Bulletin, Lanterns is going to be 2 months from now. It's going to be somewhere in the middle of January. I think February. In the middle of February, February 12th, 13th, like around Valentine's Day. So that's also exciting. This cast is looking great. I don't know how good the film is going to be. As many know, I'm not the biggest Tom King fan. I know. But Anna Noguera possibly could, she's that great of a writer that, she'll give us something damn good. Craig Gillespie's a hit and miss director, but maybe, we might be getting something more like I, Tanya and less like Cruella. So, I have some faith in him, not a ton of faith, but a little faith. But I'm overall pretty excited. The most exciting thing about this movie now is Lobo, is Jason Momoa as Lobo. Maybe that's mean. I am excited for Millie Alcock, Asaya Shonarts, and Eve Ridley, but I'm not as familiar with them. So Jason Momoa, I know he came back to DC. He's happy with DC. So, he's along with Peacemaker, Amanda Waller, and Blue Beetle. Jason Momoa is coming back with three of them, although this time as a different character, as he previously played Aquaman. So now he's coming back as the role that was essentially tailored to him. I believe it was, who said he was genetically and miraculous? He was genetically engineered for this role. It's true. And I'm curious, I want to pose a question to you guys. Now, obviously, they're gonna fucking if Supergirl does well, and if Lobo is like one of the best parts of that movie, he's getting a spinoff. There's not one, but I believe two. I believe two films that are unreleased, not unreleased, but not, obviously they're unreleased, where they have not gotten a, like, they're just like unknown DC movies on the slate. So, so it's entirely possible that one of those movies is Lobo. So I posed the question to you guys. Who would you want to direct and maybe even write Lobo? I have said many a times that I think Guy Ritchie would be good. I think, who else? I wouldn't mind Michael Bay. I think that would be okay. And this is what I was talking about. This right here. You could see there's two unknown, untitled DC projects. One in March of 2027 and May of 2026. So whatever those films are, we don't know because Clayface is confirmed for September 11th, and Batman Part 2 is confirmed for October 2027. So it's unknown what these are. So obviously we will have to wait and see. But in terms of directors, yes, the director was the segue. I fucked up the segue, but we got there in the end. David Leitch, director of Deadpool 2 and Bullet Train, and his most recent film, Fall Guy, which was unfortunately a box office bomb, despite the relatively decent quality. He's like, let's do it. let's do it now. Do you guys agree with this? Um, or do you think no way? Let's pick somebody else. I'm curious to know. Um, yeah. So Ron agrees. Guy Ritchie would be great. Um, yeah, Guy Ritchie. He's currently doing In the Gray. That got pulled from the release schedule, but he could still be on the chopping block. Now, somebody mentioned the Bane and Deathstroke movie. That is definitely that's definitely that's probably, if I were to take a guess, 2027 would probably be the case there, because May 2026 would mean that it's gonna film soon. So that's curious, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, I'm curious to know what your guys' thoughts on a director, maybe even a writer if you're into that. But I think David Leitch would be great. I think he definitely brought tonally to Deadpool 2. It was still comedy driven, but like he still had like a more serious eye that could work with like really good writers. I would love like get Paul Wernick. I've said many times, Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese to write a Lobo movie, since Lobo is actually DC's Deadpool. I know everyone said, "Oh, it's Harley Quinn." And it's not fucking Harley Quinn. It's not fucking Harley Quinn. Lobo is essentially Deadpool, just without the fourth wall breaking. That's it. He's because the whole basis of Deadpool, he was satirizing action heroes of the time. That's what Lobo was. He was a satirization of 80s action heroes. So that's what makes the character work so well. So I think Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese would be the perfect choices to write the film. I think Guy Ritchie. I think David Leitch. I think Michael Bay. I think Dan would agree with me on that. Bayhem would be interesting, but I also think George Miller could do it. I know Furiosa was a bomb, but if Warner Brothers and if James Gunn is like, you know what, this was a quality movie. I don't personally think it was, but most people thought Furiosa was great. So James Gunn was like, all right, George Miller, you have an eye for this. Lobo would be insanity. Let's shake on it. So I think George Miller would be another good choice for a Lobo film. It just, the only problem is I don't think George Miller would want to do a Lobo. I know he almost did Justice League, and that would have been amazing, but I don't know if he would be a fan of Lobo specifically. But yeah, I think okay, Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare was not an Inglorious Bastards ripoff. Calm down. At least the difference was Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare actually happened, and that was earlier this year. That was April. So get your facts right. Yeah, I agree, Caleb. Furiosa was a much weaker Fury Road. It was just all it was just like, oh hey, look, Fury Road. It just like it took away for a lot. It was so bland. It was so boring. It was a cliche. Like Fury Road changed action movies for the time, and a bunch of people were trying to be more like Fury Road, and then Furiosa was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm here too. Like it's like it just felt so. It felt like, you know what it was? Furiosa felt like a flaccid penis. That's what it was. If Mad Max Fury was a hard boner, Furiosa was just a flaccid penis. It was just that's what it was. It was just So yeah, that's what I think. Um, but yeah, I think whoever they get for a Lobo feature, I think it would be. I think they would just don't get like someone like fucking, just someone real shitty, like. I'm sorry, guys. Like Len Wiseman or something, or whatever, or the guy who did the ballerina movie, because Chad Stahelski had to come in and essentially redo the entire movie because he sucked. So yeah, don't get one of those guys. Just get someone who knows action very well, and get writers who know comedy very well, and match made in heaven. That's essentially why Deadpool 2, in my opinion, worked so well. Don't get Sean Levy. Please, for the love of God, don't get. He's such a terrible. Deadpool and Wolverine was The only reason that movie did well is because of Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman and then Nostalgia Bait. Sean Levy was not the reason why that movie worked. So, Matthew Vaughn could be Matthew Vaughn could be good. It's just Argyle, bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and I think he needs to take a break from action movies for the time being. Lord and Miller could be good. However, the last time they were on a major studio production that was not animated was Solo, and they were cut from that because a lot of the because they were ad-libbing a lot of stuff and were keeping the crew like in overtime and they weren't getting paid. So a lot of people that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths in regards to Lord and Miller, as well as animators on the Spider-Verse movies not getting paid properly and not and being treated horribly. So Lord and Miller is kind of in a they're kind of in a shit heap right now. However, they are doing Project Hail Mary, with I think Andy Weir is based on an Andy Weir book, written by Drew Goddard. Drew Goddard could be another. Drew Goddard would be a good choice for Lobo because Bad Times at the El Royale kind of had that vibe a little bit at points. But yeah, I think David Leitch tagged him himself. Let's do a Lobo feature. I think that would be awesome. But yeah, so if anybody's tuning in late, we are obviously talking about your boy Jason Momoa now playing Lobo, and that's what this is just another thing I predicted for my own personal DCEU. I predicted a lot of things. I predicted Firefly being the Batgirl villain. I predicted Wallace Day playing Batwoman, although that was for Arrowverse, and it was the original with plastic surgery, but I still count that. I got James Gunn directing a team ensemble who fights Starro the Conqueror. Boom, that's another thing I called. But yeah, I called a lot of things. I just think that's quite interesting. So add it to the list. But yeah. Somebody's talking about Superman. What are y'all talking about? Yeah. So because the thing is, with Batman Part 2, and we'll get to that soon enough, I think there is a reason why that's not going to ever be totally canceled. And I have a solid reason as to why. But yeah, I think Jason Momoa as Lobo, I think that we can all agree that's great casting. Please leave your directors or writers in the comments below, even post live stream. So we would love to see them so we can, talk about them on a later stream. But yeah, that's about it. Now we are going to get into Batman talk, and we are going to be, we are going to talk about Batman stuff, but mainly we are going to be wanting to talk about Batman Brave and the Bold. Now, Bill Skarsgård, who recently played a different kind of Batman, this time the eponymous Nosferatu, Count Orlok, in the Nosferatu film that just came out a couple days ago. By the way, go watch that. It's amazing. It's one of the best movies of the year, easily. But that's beside the point. Now, as we all know, Bill Skarsgård has been working closely with Andy Muschietti because he worked with him on both It films, but he also worked on the It spinoff TV show, Welcome to Derry. And Bill Skarsgård, I guess somebody asked him, because people are desperate after Andy Muschietti said, "Oh, this movie's postponed," and then James Gunn had to come in and say, "No, it's not postponed." I think that's a little bit of miscommunication. I think Andy Muschietti was just like, "I'm not currently," because I think he just wants to do another movie because the script hasn't been prepared. So yeah, I would take James Gunn's word over Andy Muschietti's, because Andy Muschietti seems like a hired gun than no pun intended, than James Gunn, the head honcho. But I bet on the Happy Sad Confused podcast with Josh Horowitz, I'm guessing since he's working with Andy Muschietti and they're looking for answers, somebody asked him, "Hey, Bill, what up with Muschietti with this Brave and the Bold movie?" And he's like, "I don't fucking know, man. where I don't know where the fuck he is with it. Why the fuck would I know? I'm just a guy who's not working on the movie. So yeah, I just think that's kind of it's mainly, funny. And apparently, yes, I agree, Ron. Jason Momoa should have been cast as Lobo, not Aquaman. I think he was good as Aquaman, but he was just barely Aquaman. So, let's divert it back to this, guys. Come on, we're not talking about DCU and Reeves getting come on now. So yeah. So I felt that this was kind of funny to talk about. Like, they were like, "Hey Bill, you worked with him. Do you know anything about this?" He's like, "No, I don't fucking know a thing about this." I just thought this was funny. Um but yeah. Next thing was, as I mentioned, Brave and the Bold hasn't been delayed, so I'm not sure what you're talking about, which was in response to something else. And Matt didn't lie. He said they were finishing the script, i.e., he's not finished. So yeah, that's where we are in terms. This is like the big Batman talk of the episode right now. Is you know it's tough because there's reports that Matt Reeves is going through personal stuff, and he's known to be a slow writer. And I think James Gunn is pushing this because, as somebody mentioned in the live chat, I think it was you, Antonio. Might have been Antonio. Might have been Marag. Yeah, no, it was Antonio. That was like, this movie made $770 million. The reason that this movie is not being put on ice, and James Gunn even knows this, I think, and Peter Safran, who's the businessman of it all. The reason Batman Part 2, although it might not be called Batman Part 2, because apparently there was a rumor that they're going to change it from Batman Part 2 to something else. I think the reason that they are putting this on ice and not because, like, straight up canceling it, is because they need a backup plan if the DCU fails. So I think what they're going to do, I think if for some reason Superman fails and the DCU kind of falls apart, they're going to put DCU stuff on the back burner. They're going to, like, go ahead with the stuff that's greenlit and, like, started filming and needs to be released. They're going to put that shit on the back burner and make sure the Reeves verse is at the forefront, and then quietly let Matt Reeves go so that they can, pump these movies out. Because that's unfortunately what's going to be the case, even though I hate the idea of that. But Batman makes money. The Batman almost made $1 billion. That's going to be their moneymaker if this shit fails. I hope it doesn't. I don't think it will. But if it does, that's their backup plan, is going to be the Reeves verse. That's why they haven't straight up fucking, gotten rid of it. Now, maybe I'm blowing smoke. Maybe you guys agree. Maybe you guys disagree. But Ron, thank you very much. So yeah, I think no, I'm not talking about letting Gunn go. I'm talking about yeah, that's rumors, Hosea. I don't think Reeves was ever intended to be the bigwig. Um Kind of in a way, Ron. Kind of in a way. Something in the way, I guess you could say. But I think now I'm not saying that Batman Part 2 is going to be canceled if Superman does well, or it's just like, I think Batman Part 2, there's a little bit of Superman, like, it's tethered a little bit. Because it's just, they need a moneymaker. And if Superman and the new DCU is not that moneymaker, then it's going to go to the Reevesverse. Now, I personally, if I were to take a guess, I don't think that's the case. Now, I know I failed with box office results and critical acclaim last time with Joker Folie à Deux. However, that was I eat crow on that. I was wrong. But this, I just feel like it's got way more, like, it's got James Gunn doing his own thing, but at the same time, like, he's gotten every attribute to do. He's kind of playing it safe a little bit, where he's got like the old school Big Blue Boy Scout vibes that everyone wants to see, but at the same time, he's doing his own James Gunn sort of thing. He's including crypto. He's making the suit not quite as bright. Because in the set photos they were really bright. Meanwhile, in the trailer, they look very dark. So, and he did the lines thing on the suit. He did the Kingdom Come logo. He's introducing all these heroes. He's doing, all this other stuff. So yeah, we've got some play it safe stuff like Lex Luthor, Big Blue Boy Scout vibes, pretty much the opposite of Snyder doing all that, but he's still doing like James Gunn isms. And with that, we move on to more James Gunn stuff. So James Gunn's Superman film is rumored to have a tone similar to that of the first Mummy movie, as well as Captain America: The First Avenger. Now, I think that fits fun adventure. Now, the reason I'm skeptical about this is because this came from the same report that the test screenings were bad, and somebody else already debunked those. So I don't know how true this is. Now, if it is true, I think that's a good thing because the first Mummy movie is a ton of fun, and I think the First Avenger is an underrated MCU film. Great film. Again, both are flawed movies, but both have those attributes of Superman that works. Like this, like a grand spectacle adventure film. I feel like that adds to Superman's vibe a little bit. And then First Avenger, Captain America is essentially Marvel's Superman in terms of morals. I know everyone's, yeah, no, it's the century, it's this guy, it's that guy, it's fucking whatever. I know like power set, there's a better one, but in terms of morals, Captain America is Superman's, Marvel counterpart. So with that, I think that works. I like that idea, but again, it's rumor mill. It came from the same reports that the test screenings were bad. But remember, but even if that is true, somebody debunked it. But even if it was true and the debunker was wrong, Guardians of the Galaxy, the 2014 film, also had bad test screenings in the beginning too. So who knows? Whatever it is, but if this is true, grain of salt, guys. It's I think this is a good thing. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts. So yeah, as Miraculous said, people have insider knowledge of the private screenings is unlikely. Grain of salt. I agree. I think this is grain of salt. I agree that we need a Mummy 4 with Brendan Fraser. But so Dan is in the chat now. Hi Dan. Are you gonna give Caleb a piece of your mind? But yeah, I think but again, this is major grain of salt. Don't think this is true. But if it is true, I don't think it's that bad. I think this is a good vibe to go for. So with that, we move on to the next thing. He was talking about how, the new Superman suit, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's bulky, it's weird looking. Well, James Gunn has some reasons for that. He didn't want it to have it look like a wet t-shirt, which is fair, and didn't want to have it have a bunch of fake muscles on it. Now, I kind of agree with that. Like I know that there have been plenty of guys in the past that have muscles where they do away with the fake muscles of the suit, like Ryan Reynolds for Deadpool, Christopher Reeve for the original Superman suit. They had to go back and reshoot footage because he got so big that he filled out the suit more. And then and the Phantom with Billy Zane, that was another one where he got so built for the suit that they had to get rid of the fake muscles in the suit. So I like how we're not getting fake muscles. Now I know a bunch of Snyder cultists are going to say Henry Cavill didn't have fake. I know he didn't have fake muscles, but even then, we still don't want it to look like it had fake muscles. Like I will say, the only time like fake muscles actually worked was Captain Marvel in Shazam, because I feel like the at least in the first film, it like kind of worked because again, he's supposed to be like that Superman prestige, and like in addition to the fact, it's supposed to be more comedy driven. So I think that works. Like I don't mind like comedy driven sort of stuff, like in regards to big hulking masses. But yeah, I agree with this. I still don't love the suit. Um yeah. I think I think I agree with this. How he wants a more sleek down design. He doesn't want the. I still don't like the lines. I still don't like the lines. I still think it looks weird and icky. But I agree with this. I didn't want it to have it look like a wet t-shirt. Didn't want it to have a bunch of fake muscles on it. I agree with that. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts. If you agree, if you can agree and still be like, the suit still sucks. I agree with what he's saying, but the suit still sucks. Or do you agree because the suit looks good? Curious to know your guys' thoughts. So yeah, we have James Gunn essentially, just clarifying because he's got nothing else better to do apparently than just be on social media for you know hours on end, just tweeting and blue skying and threading and whatever the fuck he's doing now. Um, but yeah, I agree with this wholeheartedly. And lastly, that we want to talk about until we get into into fan comments is Superman draws from sci-fi and fantasy for its approach. And we talked about this at another point. James Gunn did mention that he wants this to be very sci-fi driven, but he also said that speaking of the DCU as a whole, James Gunn said that it's fantasy. It's taking from other things like Game of Thrones, using Game of Thrones again as a comparison. Weird, but okay. In addition, he spoke of the sci-fi gadgets pulled from Silver Age comics. On Lex and his use of tools, Gunn said, I think of him as like a sorcerer. Now, we did mention that. So I think I want to talk about this aspect right here. I like the idea of fantasy because I feel like with fantasy, it's more broad because a lot of people like sci-fi I feel like is so regimented in terms of its description that some people don't consider various things sci-fi like according to many people Star Wars is not sci-fi because it's so fantastical with its aspects that it's like it's not like Star Trek or 2001 or Silent Running or Necromancer or stuff like that where it's like super hardened sci-fi, but it's so fantastical that it's fantasy rather than sci-fi. Like Dune, that's sci-fi. Um, while even though it's not like medieval fantasy that we view fantasy as like wizards, witches, like magic, like Harry Potter and that kind of thing. Fantastic. Like I feel like fantasy is a broader element, and I feel like DC kind of fits into that because it's so fantastical with its various elements, unlike Marvel, which I feel like is the hardened sci-fi. That I feel like can be like very because I mean, look at Iron Man, guy in a fucking like fancy suit that like bioengineered suit that fucking flies around and saves people. Spider-Man, radioactive spider. Captain America, it was a serum. Thor is probably the most fantastical out of all of them, but I feel like many people like they have that realistic edge. Like Fantastic Four, they got it through cosmic rays, which is for the most part a real sci-fi or science thing that can be used for a sci-fi element. So I feel like Marvel is very much sci-fi, but DC is very much fantasy. So like if like Marvel is Star Trek, DC is Star Wars. And that makes sense because James Gunn has already made that Star Wars argument in terms of how he views the DC universe because it's not going to be like this phase is going to be this and this is going to build up to this thing. He's like it's not going to be like that. It's just like this story over here, the Skywalker saga, the Knights of the Old Republic, the fucking Rogue One, Skeleton Crew, Boba Fett, Mandalorian, where it's just kind of things all over the place of like different planets and people and systems and how they deal with the Force, Jedi, the Sith, or none of those, or all of those. So that's what's kind of interesting about the Star Wars universe. And I feel like DC kind of falls into that as well. Like it's like alien from another planet, or Greek mythology, or guy doused in chemicals and he gets super speed. It's just like I feel like it's a whole grab bag of various things that fit under the DC umbrella, and I like how James Gunn is like going towards that aspect. I guess I really like that. Um, um, uh, Now what are you guys talking about? Declaring something that isn't cinema because of the genre is stupid simplicity. Um, okay, yes, fantasy is cinema. You know, I don't know what y'all are talking about now. I don't know what y'all are talking about. Um, I can tell it's supposed to be, yeah, it's like, I mean, I like the alien aspect of it, of the suit, but it's just like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, I think I do like, the idea of like again the DC universe being more fantastical. I like how I like that a lot because it's how I view it's really how I view the DC universe. I've always said like how Marvel was the dark ones, and then the DC universe was the more like non-dark one. I guess you could say it's like more juvenile, but you know how it is. But yeah, I'm curious to know everyone's thoughts about everything. As we, all know, just gonna speed run through this stuff. Jason Momoa is now playing our Lobo. Our cast is now Millie Alcock, Matthias Schoenertz, even Eve Ridley, and Jason Momoa as Lobo. Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is going to be shooting in 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks from today. Very exciting. And even though Lobo has not been confirmed with an actual film project or even a television project, David Leitch is like, all right, let's go. And with that, I think George Miller, Guy Ritchie, even Michael Bay, I think would be good choices. Would be good choices for the for the main man. Now, in regards to Batman stuff, people asked Bill Skarsgård, "What's Andy doing with Brave and the Bold?" He doesn't know because he doesn't. Because I can't imagine that Andy Muschietti is like going up to Bill Skarsgård like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing with Batman. You want to hear about it?" It's like, no, okay, you played a Bat character in Nosferatu because vampires and Batman, they're kind of connected. They both turn into Bat, they both have bats. And it's like, I guess. But he's like, I don't fucking know. So, and James Gunn confirming that Brave and the Bold hasn't been delayed, despite what Andy Muschietti said. So, communication error there. And Matt didn't lie. He said they were finishing the script. They're not finished. So, and he does say they because I forget who the name is, but the guy who did Terminator Zero is co-writing the script with Matt Reeves. So there's that. There's a whole bunch of rumors on Matt Reeves's personal life and all that. Who knows? But obviously, grain of salt. We just don't know anything until that shit starts filming. So whatever it is. Grain of salt, huge grain of salt, because this is based on now debunked rumors that the Superman film is going to have a tone similar to Captain America, the First Avenger, and the first Mummy movie. Interesting. And then James Gunn, he didn't want it to the Superman suit to be like a wet T-shirt, and didn't want to have a bunch of fake muscles on it. That's why it's not so skin tight. And I appreciate that. And as I was just talking about, it's going to be more fantastical. It's going to be less sci-fi. So I think that's really cool. But last but certainly not least, we are going to get into some fan comments. Not a lot, but some. We got three for you. We're gonna since he's in the chat right now, Elite Z, we're gonna talk about yours first. I forget which episode this is from. I forget what all these episodes are from. I was kind of just grabbing them all of them, just like, let's get much. But Elite DCE, you were essentially agreeing with me. Embracing comic mythology. How novel, he says, with an upside down smiley face. Yes, I agree. I agree. Elite Easy. It's just like, oh hey, we're gonna be, using comics. Fucking insane, right? So yeah, it just like I feel like, especially there was a viral video we posted here where it was a bunch of showrunners and directors from Marvel being like, you're put in a bubble, you're not allowed to read the comic, you're not supposed to read the comic. Like the director of the main writer of Secret Invasion, the miniseries, wasn't allowed to read the comic. The creator of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you're not allowed to. You're put in a bubble. And then a lot of people were like, "Oh, the creator of She-Hulk was like, well, we didn't look at the comics." Or so many people are like, "We didn't look at the source material. We didn't look at the comics. We didn't do this. We didn't do that." It's just like you have decades of fucking history. Now, I understand you want to make your own story. That's fine. But you can always go, like, I don't know how to do this. Go to the comics for help. That's what they're there for. Like, you can make any stupid idea work because probably there was a comic that did it. Because remember, it's not just big trade paperbacks of stories, it's issues upon, just because for the longest time it was just not arcs, it was just one issue. One singular issue would be like, oh, this is what Superman does this week, or this is what Batman does this week. Well, this month, because they were monthly, but you know how it is. Use comics, guys. And James Gunn's like, hey, we're gonna fucking use the comics. Crazy. And Elite Easy was agreeing with me, like, embracing comic mythology. What a crazy thought, right? So thanks, Elite Easy. I agree with you there. Um, so, um, yeah. So and speaking of Antonio, Absolute Wonder Woman and Absolute Batman #1 is the best selling comic book this year. So congrats. I still won't read it, but very nice, and it's nice to see DC actually doing stuff again. Um, So, but moving on from like comic book in the movies kind of thing, Lamont Rowe. I don't think we've ever seen you before, but thank you for joining us. He was saying, or they were saying, James Gunn superhero films always feels like a mini comic series. This Superman movie will be one of his best written works. I agree with that. I think from what we've gotten, what he's talked about, the trailer, all that, I don't agree with every single of the aesthetic choices that he's done, as well as the main villain, but I pretty much almost agree with everything else, and I'm excited. Yeah, I might not like Lex Luthor. I might not be in love with the suit. I might not like the black hair, but I like how they're embracing every facet of comic book history. We're getting a bit of Golden Age with being him being the champion of the oppressed. We're getting we're getting him in the Silver Age, the sillier, campier, cornier aspects, which is also great. We're getting some Bronze Age stuff. We're getting, the Luthor Corp, billionaire, like kind of villain, as well as, taking some inspiration from like the John Byrne era and all that. We're getting post-crisis Pa and Ma Kent, it seems like. And because Pa Kent is alive, and James Gunn said he's not going to kill him off, so and we're getting some modern stuff with like some aesthetic choices, like Kingdom Come and the New 52 suit. So I really like he's like it shows that James Gunn is a comic book fan, not just a guy who read Dark Knight Returns 50 million times and thinks that's the only comic book known to man. So I really appreciate that, and I like how comic booky his films feel, and I feel like that's going to be the same with Superman. And he even recognizes like I'm not going to be doing, because he's like, I'm not going to be doing a lot of pop songs. I'm not going to be doing a lot of humor, because I know that's because he has too much respect for Superman as a character to do that. So I feel like this is going to be might be his best movie. Now, who knows? I could be eating crow in 7 months, so we'll have to see. But I think that will be the case. I think I agree with Lamont Rowe. I think we're going to be getting a great film on July 11th. So, and then finally JP. I don't think JP is in the chat with us right now. Sometimes he is, sometimes he isn't. Um, you know, uh yes, please hit the like button. 25 of you are watching and we've 16 likes. Come on, guys. Yes, Caleb Underwood. Superman is a comic book movie. The MCU currently is corporate slop. Anyway, but JB gave us a long comment on one of the last 3 episodes. I forget which one, but it goes back to our Batman Part 2 discussion. The Batman 2 is getting delayed a full year because James Gunn is not greenlighting non-finished scripts. I agree. That's like what he's been saying for the nonstop for the past 6 months. I don't blame James Gunn for that. The rest of his comment. He has to make responsible business decisions for DC because even though Peter Safran's the business guy, he's still the co-CEO. He's like, I might be the creative guy, but I still got to think of this in a logistical sort of way. Just think if WB was still in charge, and I mean, they technically are in charge, but not really. It's a still separate entity of the Batman. They would have forced Reeves to start production without a finished script. I was sitting on this comment for so long because this was the big thing I wanted to talk about, but I wanted you guys to hear it from JB because I agree with this so much. Like, what happens when you get a movie that starts without a script? You get Captain America Brave New World, which got like 4 different rounds of reshoots that changed the movies, got rid of villains and added other villains, ballooned the alleged budget up to 400. Now it's being reported $450 million. That doesn't include marketing. It looks like a haphazard mess. It looks like, just like Winter Soldier, but somehow worse. And it looks like a mess. Now, I understand. I know people in the fucking comments are gonna say, well, look at Iron Man. Yeah, Iron Man was a fucking lightning in a bottle movie. You can't do that every fucking time. Iron Man, that was a movie that shouldn't have. It's literally miraculous. See what I did there? That movie did as well as it did and started something as well as it did because Jon Favreau just got off of Zathura, which bombed. Robert Downey was like the last 2 movies he did was bombed, and he was still off of his drug days. They had like 17 different scripts from back when Tom Cruise was going to star in the movie. They didn't have like any villain. They were going off the seat of their pants. That movie in every aspect should have fucking bombed. That movie should have bombed, but it didn't. But the thing is, you shouldn't use that as your main example because that was a miracle. It was quite literally a miracle. You shouldn't use that as your thing. So with that, again, if WB was in charge of this thing, they would have said, we don't give a fuck. It's coming out in 2026 or hell, even 2025. You're starting it now. And he's like, he would either say, okay, or he would have enough clout and be like, well, fuck you. I can work on fucking Planet of the Apes 5. Fuck off and leave. And then we would get like a shitty director to do it for us anyway. So, yes, it's like, I'd rather have a delayed good movie than get, as Caleb Underwood would say, corporate slop. So, you know what? If that makes me a villain, then I'm the Joker, baby. Anyway, but we're reaching the end of our yeah. We're gonna be, I'm just looking at the comments one last time. Hey AJ, you know, uh I think we got some good news today, got some not great news today, but I think James Gunn was like, all right, people are pissed at us for Batman Part 2. Enter Lobo. We got to get some goodwill back. So yes, so I want to thank everyone for watching today. I would like to thank, okay, who's in the chat with us? Miraculous, Caleb Underwood, Antonio, Dan, of course, was in the chat. Ron, AJ, Hosea, Elite Easy E, Ron, I think I already mentioned Ron, J. Kelly, Buster Barnes was in the beginning. I don't think he left another comment though. But thank you guys for watching. This was a very you just had me today. You had Dan a little bit, but then he got offended by Caleb Underwood saying Man of Steel sucked, even though Caleb was right. But please like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell. We're here every day. We're going to be here tomorrow talking about I think we're talking about our favorite comic books. Well, at least I'm talking about my favorite comic books. But obviously we'll get there when we get there, and we're going to be doing some more fan casting. We're going to be doing some more, fun stuff later this week that leads us into the new year. So get pumped for that. But as I said, thank you for watching, everybody. We got 19 likes, 37 of you are fucking watching. Make sure to like, comment. Make sure to comment if you're watching post live. Maybe you'll be on a future episode. But once again, thank you. I'm not good with the goodbyes. That's why I always elongate my goodbyes. But that's how it is. But see you tomorrow with another DCU Daily.